All right, so here we go.
All right.
This is the first podcast for Faces in the Crowd, normal people doing extraordinary things. I'm going to introduce Christopher Chinn here. So Christopher Chinn's artwork is inspired by the marginalized and dispossessed of our society. His work focuses on the homeless population in Los Angeles. He's a professor of drawing and painting at LBCC. Christopher's work has been included in numerous solo and national group exhibitions and museums. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, yeah, great to have you. So, Chris, you spent a year on a sabbatical.
Yep.
And you did many paintings of homeless encampments in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Mainly Eagle Rock, Echo Park, and Hollywood, it seems like, from your website.
Hollywood, a little bit of downtown as well. Yeah, I guess that was the main parts that I got to.
Okay. Which location did you find yourself most connected to?
Well, each one is different. So probably Eagle Rock, because it's my neighborhood. I live adjacent to Eagle Rock, and play in Eagle Rock and shop in Eagle Rock, so it's more of my neighborhood. So probably there. Echo Park is the neighborhood where my in-laws live. So I visit Echo Park often, and I'm really familiar with it. Hollywood again. I'm in on the weekends. I'm kind of there in Hollywood, and so my connections are different to each of those areas.
Okay, well, let's go into it. So you live adjacent to Eagle Rock. What neighborhood do you live in?
Highland Park.
Okay, you live in Highland Park.
Yeah.
So did you feel a connection because you've driven by these places and maybe were curious on your drive and you decided to go look further into them?
Yeah, well, so the first one is a place that I drove by every day when I take my kids to school and pick them up. It's an underpass at the 134 in Figueroa.
Okay.
I had been doing paintings of homeless individuals since 2002, so for a long time. And I'd stopped for a little while there because I wanted to kind of reevaluate how I was doing it. I wanted it to be a little bit different than it had been. And there were some other paintings that I wanted to make.
Different in which way?
I had been doing portraits of people. And I just felt like it's great. Don't get me wrong, but it's hard to do that sustained for a long period when the people that you're painting aren't always able to be reliable.
Okay.
And I just felt like I had to look at
forever moving home locations.
I just felt like I had to approach the subject matter from a different angle, a different point of view. So rather than focusing on the individuals, I wanted to look at the city and how groups of people were living in the city, rather than like focusing on one person. So that was the first encampment, was the one in my own neighborhood that I passed through when I brought my kids to work. And then it just, it was everywhere in Los Angeles. There was no place you could go and not see an encampment.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Where that wasn't always true before. So that's kind of where.
So what type of what did you find the community was? You went from individuals to more of a community mindset.
Right. Well, it's really different. So again, when I was doing a lot of individuals, and actually when I started this project, I did a lot in downtown as well, along 5th Street.
Okay.
So downtown, the people who are living on the streets there really own their spot, right?
So
on their street.
So
and that's their
permanent. Okay.
Yeah, that's their place, right? And they're very comfortable there. And I'm a guest when I go to paint there in their neighborhood, in their homes. And they're not afraid to come talk to you, see what you're doing. Whereas the people in Eagle Rock who were living under the freeway have a feeling or a sense, or at least they seem for me to communicate the sense that they know they don't really belong there, and that they could be kicked out and moved and cleaned out at any moment. It's much more unstable, so it's a very different kind of feeling between people in downtown and those in other parts of the city where they kind of know. This was especially true in Echo Park because the tension was so high there between the community and the unhoused who were living in the park.
Right.
They knew that they weren't welcome, where they weren't wanted, and that the housed community
Right.
had enough, and didn't want to deal with it anymore.
Echo Park is a fairly gentrified area of Los Angeles, isn't it?
Yeah. It's gone through changes since I've lived here. Yeah.
Right. I remember I worked on a food truck about 10 years ago, and Echo Park was basically a dirt lot.
Yeah.
They were redoing the entire park.
Yeah, and they did. I mean, and it was funny when I heard that they were going to clean out the encampment and to fix it up again. I was like, I just knew that it was going to be open in time for the Lotus Festival.
Okay, I'm not familiar.
Okay, so every year, it's in July, they have the Lotus Festival there. So
Like a flower?
Yeah, because all the flowers are blooming in the lake, and then they have all the community and businesses are there, and there's food, and
Right.
games, and demonstrations, and music, and dance, all from the community. And it's a great festival. I love it.
Sounds
We
like a
go
fun time.
every
Sure.
year. They've had it, and it's a great time. But I just knew that, when you saw the population of people who had settled there in their tents to survive, that there's no way those two things were going to happen together.
Yeah.
So I just knew that this was going to clash. And again, when I was there working, there was tension. It was palpable.
So you were painting these encampments, and the date of the Lotus Festival was nearing?
No. So I started painting, I think.
The debut, the reopening of the park.
Yeah, and that was something
okay.
that I had started. I'd done the paintings, and then read about it in the LA Times that the city council district was going to close the park and clean it up, and that they were going to clean out the encampment. And again, the hope was that those people would be offered a safe and sustainable place to live.
Yeah.
And you knew that some people were going to accept that and some people wouldn't. But that whole thing that happened, as I saw that coming down, I just kind of lost my train of thought.
What was the feeling, the general vibe of the encampments as this was happening? The tension was building.
Yeah,
they knew they were going to be moved out.
I think I think this part of it's been pretty well documented in the Times and everything when they moved everything. But I think that they were aware of that they weren't welcome anymore, I think. And they knew things were going to be coming down, and they did a great job, I think, of organizing and trying to protest against it. And
Right, I remember hearing about that.
to stand up for their need and right to shelter and safety. I think one of the things that the city really should have done, I was reading about it in San Francisco, where the city was paying homeless encampment community to clean up their trash.
Oh, right on, yeah.
And it was clean and neat, and I just felt like, okay, if they had done that in Echo Park, the whole feeling of that encampment would have been different. Because I did have a sense that most of the people who were living there were trying to keep things neat and clean and nice, and there were tents that were decorated and there were flowers out, and
right. In one of your pictures, there's a tent with a nice looking painting right next to it.
Painting, right? And there were people had flags and things up on their little space, and so I think they were trying.
Right.
If they had a little help,
right. A little bit of guidance rather than an ultimatum.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. So let's go back to that. So you said that you knew that some people would be willing to accept indoor housing, and some wouldn't really jump at that opportunity.
Yeah.
What do you think the mindset behind that is? I feel like most people would welcome that.
Yeah.
But some people are just not into it.
I think some people. Well, I think some. Again, this is kind of really generalized from years of talking with different homeless people.
You're the next best thing in talking to. You probably have more knowledge than most, even people who work within the community. You might.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I think they're, again, this is what we're here for. This is what we're here for.
You can go ahead and just lay it out.
I look at, and I know people, and I volunteered at organizations often, and I know people who work with homeless people every day.
Yeah.
That's what they do, and they're trying to every way to help out, and I totally admire that. Then they know far more about it than I do. I can't do that. I'm teaching and trying to be an artist, so the thing that I can do is try to paint the city and to capture this particular moment in the city.
Yeah, I mean that's the importance of what you're doing. You're bringing beauty and attention to sometimes not so beautiful of a situation, but it all depends on how you look at it.
Yeah.
You would go from painting individuals' faces to more of like a community, because that's kind of
the city. Yeah.
What it is,
I think so. You get back to your question. I think it's just human nature. Some people are suspicious and not trusting. I think for good reason. So with the room key thing, you get the hotel room, how long are you going to have it? It's going to be stable in the long run. If you already have a place that you're comfortable and familiar with, and there are other people around you that you have relationships with now, all that's going to be gone, right? And so, are you going to be able to stay in this new place that they're offering you for how long?
Right.
And what are you going to do when that time runs out?
Because it eventually will.
Yeah. And this is another thing that I think a lot of people don't know. It's not something I talk about often, but I do have family members who have struggled with homelessness. And there's right when COVID hit, a particular family member actually came to stay with my wife and I. And my wife basically took 2 weeks because everything shut down at that time. She was able to kind of really focus all of her attention for 2 weeks to try to get this family member into some supportive housing that could be long-term. And it was constant emails, calls, it never stopped for 2 weeks. It was a full-time job for her to try to help out this family member. And we have, we had internet, she has a cell phone, we have power. If you're on the street trying to navigate all of that system, I mean, I'm amazed that anyone can do it.
Most people, like you, basically nobody living on the streets have those resources.
Yeah.
Some might have a cell phone or something like that, right?
Yeah, but they got to find a place to charge it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
and to have minutes on it, you got to have money to pay for it.
Yeah.
So in that situation, every little thing is, just the next thing to get past to survive.
Yeah.
And any kind of long-term outlook is really difficult to see. So they're saying, okay, we got to move you out of this and put you here, and now your whole life is going to change.
Right.
In that moment. That's a tough choice for anyone.
Yeah, and it's tough to even get to that position in the first place.
Right.
Considering all the resources
you finally got a little piece of grass where I can put a tent and try to, feel safe at night and all of that. Yeah, it's, I cannot imagine. It's immense.
Right.
That choice, if you were that person, would be, very, very difficult. So
Right.
I can understand why some people would say, you know what, I'm not going to take that.
And so when you were, let's say, downtown Los Angeles, you said that they were very established in their location.
Yes.
Yeah. So how would you respect that? How would you approach them? How would you go about?
Right. It's hard. I always wanted to try to find a spot where no one was.
Right.
It's got the nice thing about downtown, and even in that part of Central City East, is that there's some big sidewalks.
Yes.
So
Okay.
I can usually find, I had to find a spot where I wasn't in anyone else's, I wasn't going to be in anyone's way.
Right. Right.
And I still have to set up so that I have, 5 foot of space around me and my easel and all my stuff.
Oh yeah. What kind of gear did you take out there? Sorry to interrupt you, but just a little side thought.
I have to pack in my whole studio, so I've got an easel. I've got a box with all my paints, my mineral spirits to clean up, paper towels, wet wipes, tape.
Now, mineral spirits? I'm not familiar with that.
Mineral spirits, it's a paint thinner.
Oh, paint thinner.
Yeah,
Okay.
clean up the oil paint.
Yeah. Get your brushes nice and clean.
Yeah, I've got to have my brushes.
Right.
Palette knives. I always bring a bag for trash. And then I have a box that I can slide the painting in to keep it safe for travel.
Right. Yeah. Totally.
So that's the main stuff that I have with me. Yeah.
Okay. So sorry to take. So you have a handful of.
I've got some stuff. Yeah. That I'm going to take up. Yeah, like the tripod and the video camera. I'm going to take up some room. So I need at least 5 foot of passable space.
Okay.
For accessibility on the public sidewalk around me. So big sidewalks are kind of really important. Or grassy space, that's public. And yeah, so I just try to, I need a view of some area that I think I can paint, and then, space to do it in. Most people, once I start, they're very curious about what I'm doing. That's, I think, the good thing between painting and photography is photography really, it's fast in a way. Not necessarily, I know this isn't true for all photographers, but it can be passing and you can do it in an instant. And, where as painting, I'm there for 3 hours.
Yeah.
So they come around and say, what are you doing? And I think, I'm not painting people. There's few instances where I included any figure, and because the paintings are really small, and again, I'm doing them real fast. Mm-hmm. There's no likeness of anyone. Right.
Yeah.
It's just like a figure.
Yeah.
So I'm not painting the people. I think that lowers their guard. But I didn't have any trouble when I was doing portraits of people either. But then I had a conversation with them before, could I paint you? And we just sit here and let me draw you for a while or whatever. And that kind of thing happened. So,
is there anybody you'd like to talk about? Any interesting folks that really kind of struck you?
I'm sure
I'm sure there's a ton, but
there have been a lot.
One or two you might be able to pull out the top of your head?
Well, before I
sorry. No,
talk about one.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
One interesting thing happened when I was in downtown painting. This woman came up to me and she said, "Oh my God, I never saw that building before. I didn't even know that building was there."
And she's looking at your painting.
She's looking at my painting, and she's looking at the city like, "I've never seen that building before."
That's incredible.
It's like,
that's incredible.
I said, "Oh, thank you." And I kind of wandered off. Another person said, he came over because his space was kind of where I was working, and there's a light post over it. And, some ravens, sitting up on the light post, and he comes around and says, "All right, you can paint my tent, but you have to paint those birds too."
He's working out a deal with
you. All right, I'll put those birds in there.
It's almost like his little buddies, his pets. His
exactly.
Pet birds
Yeah,
there,
something. He had some connection to them, so I put them in the painting. But man, I mean, so many people from all over, and some of them I see regularly.
Right.
And of course, they would eventually kind of disappear, and some, someone new would pop in, and they'd be, I'd never see them again. Or they'd be around, for months or even years. Some people couldn't even talk. They could hardly put two words together to make a sentence. You just barely tell me their name. Those were hard ones, because you knew they would never really be able to live on their own. They're always going to need someone to help them to navigate culture and society, or to live in a home. They weren't going to be capable of that on their own. One that stood out to me was a guy who said he lost his business. He had an old hardware store in Santa Monica. Had to close up shop, and he just kind of went bankrupt and lost everything. So now he was in downtown, sleeping on the streets.
Wow.
He had lost his business.
A part of maybe a symptom of identifying yourself through your work, and your world shatters when
things get harder,
taken away from you.
Yeah, no one goes to the small stores, the big box stores.
Right, Lowe's and Home Depot are coming into town, and
one of the things that I always try to do, no matter what, when I'm working, is no matter what anyone tells me, I accept as true.
Okay, yeah.
I'm going to be the most naive person, and I'm not going to question. So you tell me you had $1 million at one point, and you were super rich, and you lost everything.
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry for your loss, but I just believe everything, no matter what. I'm never going to question their stories if they want to tell me.
Right. You're there to listen.
Exactly.
You're there to portray their stories, maybe.
Yeah.
Through your artwork.
Just to listen and to give them some validation.
Yeah, definitely.
That they're important no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, some people just want to be heard, listened to, and everything like that. Yeah. Okay, so let's go back to this. What did you look for in a subject?
In the city paintings that I was doing.
Sure. Sure. I mean, you could
interesting
answer
area.
that question in any direction you'd like to.
I think for the city paintings I was doing during this sabbatical project and this series of paintings, I wanted to get to a lot of different areas. So again, like downtown where I started in Eagle Rock. But then also, right outside City Hall is different than Central City East.
That's
right?
interesting, yeah.
And that contrast of City Hall with, hundreds of homeless people camped out around it, that's quite a startling image, and one that I can't let go. That needs to be recorded. Then Echo Park just seemed such a beautiful park. And not that people living in there degraded it, but then it was the idea that people had to, they didn't have a choice. And if you did have a choice, wouldn't you want to be there?
Right.
It's beautiful and it feels safe. And yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to capture that.
Biggest fountain
the other great thing about it is, okay, you had every level of it. There are people who barely, didn't have a tent. There are people with tents. There were people living in cars and trucks all around. Then you've got apartment buildings and single family homes all in this one area. So every level of housing was represented in this one spot.
Yeah, and I feel it was Echo. I think it was the Echo Park Lake Homes 2.
Okay, yes, you were looking at the website.
I was looking at the website.
Awesome.
I wrote down some that I thought were really interesting.
Not everything is there right now either.
The one I wrote on the bottom kind of goes along the line of what you were talking about with City Hall.
Yeah.
And that was not enough on Hollywood Boulevard.
Oh, yeah, that one.
Go into that a little bit, please?
Yeah, so I was actually walking down Hollywood Boulevard. This is like right in front of Barnstall Art Park, or right across this, right near it, across the street. And there is, all people camped out there along the boulevard. And then there's that sign.
Right.
They're putting up.
Just for the sake of the podcast, what did the sign say?
Well, it said exactly. Well, no, the sign was an advertisement for homes, like condos, I think, that were going to be put in there. They're going to be
in an empty lot.
Yeah, I mean, this is market rate housing, and because it's their units for sale, they don't have to have any low-income housing included in it.
Oh, okay.
So it's not an apartment complex.
Got it.
It's condos for sale. But it just seemed like, that just doesn't fit with me. If you're gonna be putting any housing in, the vast majority of it needs to be for people who can't survive right now.
Right.
Not, wealthy people who could, buy a nice new home. So all of the people who are living there are going to be displaced shortly. And they were. That encampment was gone the next time I went by.
Right.
So
it's kind of like an ironic term for it, but it's like a positive feedback loop, where like it is kind of a negative thing, but it's the high prices of housing and the lack of affordable housing.
Yeah.
Adds more to the the homeless population.
And that's why it's just it continues to get worse.
Right.
It continues to get worse. So absolutely, until communities can accept all people living there as valuable and needing shelter, and that providing that for them is going to make it better for everyone.
Right. Yeah.
Until that happens, I don't see how it can get better. As soon as a project goes up, okay, this is going to be a low-income housing project or mixed, right? Mm-hmm. And we're going to have so many units for low-income housing. Right. Almost, every community is comes out against it.
Yeah.
We don't want those people here, man. They're gonna lower all our property values.
The fear is the property values line, right?
Okay, but then now you're gonna have them living in tents.
Right outside your house.
And you're gonna see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
And that juxtaposition was it wasn't more obvious than anywhere. Echo Park was probably the biggest. Butting of heads.
Yeah, I think so.
Why do you think that is?
I think, again, I think it was the beauty of the park.
Right.
There's, there's
cool old-looking buildings there.
Yeah,
that kind of remind you of LA.
Really, they're really nice homes.
Right.
In the area. There's also a really, tight-knit kind of community feel to Echo Park.
Okay.
I think always, since I moved to LA, Echo Park always felt like a really neat community.
Yeah. It's a fun place to be.
Yeah.
Like I used to work at a coffee shop on the food truck, which was cool, obviously. But I went to Echo Park Rising one year. Are you familiar with that?
No.
It was just a bunch of shows at the different venues all up and down.
Okay, yeah.
Echo Park, and it was like you said, it seemed like just a lot of people came out of their houses and just started walking up and down the street, and it was fun. It was very
families fun. And kids,
yeah,
always in the park, and it's just, Absolutely.
Kind of a little bit of the indie rock scene.
Yeah, every level, I think, right? Yeah, there's great venues there for music and food. Yeah, and then the park and the kids, and the school is right up there. So yeah, it feels like a very comfortable, friendly community.
Okay.
So yeah, and then you all of a sudden you see this explosion of people experiencing extreme poverty in there, and that continues for years, right? And it builds up. It just blew.
Yeah. When did you notice that explosion?
Oh man, you know what? I think there had. I'm trying to making me question my memory.
Or maybe
like what
maybe
kind of year it was?
Maybe this. You came from the Midwest. What was your shocking moment, your light bulb moment when you saw this sort of dynamic? Yeah, how this is happening in the city of Los Angeles.
Well, it was after graduate school, so I had seen some homeless in LA. The arts district I'd been through, quickly. But after I graduated from USC, I got a studio kind of in southeast downtown, so not quite in the arts district, near the fashion district.
Okay.
I guess it was in the fashion district. Pico
area.
And San Pedro. Again, there were people living in the walkway to my back door.
Okay.
There's a long kind of like alley, and it was just like people living in there. And so when I moved in, the landlord, had to move them out.
Oh.
And he said he was going to pay them to move. I don't know if he ever did.
Maybe an unlikely situation.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
Right. But seeing people living in that space, and then now I'm going upstairs,
right?
And I could hardly afford it at the time. I had maybe one part-time job that was like, I don't know, it was like $15 an hour maybe.
Which was that all right money back then.
Back then, yeah, it was pretty good.
Bad. Yeah, for sure.
After you
got out of
I
USC
felt poor, but then there's, a whole, I don't know if they were like two couples. I think they were couples, maybe not. But they were living, 4 people in this little alleyway, which made me just feel, incredibly guilty. And then seeing them later on, around the neighborhood, people building out of pallets, cardboard, some kind of like bivouac structure to live in.
Okay.
Actually saw, again, everything that most people do in their bedroom in private, I've seen happen on the sidewalk in the open.
Right.
Yeah. So that first
the
year,
good, the bad, and the ugly.
That first year was educational and really difficult. And
where were you living before that? Around USC?
No, I guess it would be Koreatown.
Okay.
I was north. Gosh, again, you're like making me question my memory.
No, it just seemed like what you came
north of
from
Wilshire.
And what you went to
Yeah.
into that.
So no, it was still a nice part of the city, and it was a short commute to SC though.
Yeah.
It wasn't far.
Shoot down Figueroa or Western.
Yeah. Vermont.
Okay. One of those.
Yeah. But yeah, I had, when I was at SC, I was on a scholarship, so I didn't have to pay tuition.
Great.
I had a monthly stipend to pay for my apartment that had parking, gated parking. So that was, I look back at it now, that was nice.
That apartment's probably worth a lot now.
It probably is. More than I could have afforded then, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So I was very fortunate.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden now I'm in, kind of industrial area in downtown, and surrounded by people that I had never really interacted with before.
Right.
You know, it was a whole new thing to me, and so I had to deal with it. I couldn't ignore it, and I didn't want to, you know, blame them. I wanted to, especially once you get to know people. So they would watch. There's a couple guys who would watch, because everything is metered parking there. So they would watch our car meters, and put time on it with a paperclip, straightened out paperclip. They would add time on the meters, and then
Wait. So they're fooling it. They're making it think that there's a coin going in there.
They're totally
but they're just
cheating
poking
it.
it with a
Put your
paperclip.
paperclip in there, and it would add time to the meter.
Okay, that's
So they would watch our cars for us, because we can put change endlessly all day when we lived
yeah.
there. So they would do that, and then we would bring them food and money, and try to take care of them.
They had a full-time job.
Yeah, basically it was.
Right, yeah.
And I saw a fist fight break out once because someone was trying to get a meter. This was like across the street. So a woman parked her car. She's like a grandma. She comes out of her car, and she's real small, and this guy's doing her meter for her. And asking for change. And she gives him something, and this other guy, the whole time that's happening, this other guy's walking down the street screaming and yelling, "That's my meter! That's my meter!"
Little turf battle.
And then he just walks right up to him, just starts like beating the other guy.
Yikes! Yikes!
That's my meter, and the old lady's like, "Oh my God!"
And she's like, "I can't do anything to
just
help
trying
this
to get away out of this, and.
She's probably wondering, should I feed the meter?
Yeah, what should I do? And,
That's tough.
Yeah. It was, but that's, they have their territory.
Right, yeah.
It's not, there are hierarchies in the communities.
Interesting.
And
how so? So there's somebody that has the biggest spot, or the most
someone's
stuff or
going to watch,
or?
that section of the block.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Kind of like a Billy Bad.
Yeah, you're not
dude.
going to just pop down any old place, right?
Right. Okay.
Unless the community says it's okay.
Okay.
You know. So.
Wow. So
absolutely. I mean, it's just like any group of people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's going to be.
Everybody kind of plays their role.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and that will be laid out, in the harshest ways sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
There it's on the street and it's survival.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And now you had a dynamic between your neighbors living on the sidewalk and you in the apartment. I know you brought up San Francisco and then paying to keep their area clean.
Yeah.
How do you think the people of Eagle Rock could have handled that situation a little better?
Yeah.
Or Echo Park, I'm sorry.
Right, Echo Park.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Or Eagle Rock under
or
the
Eagle
freeway.
Rock. We haven't even touched on
Yeah.
Eagle Rock, and you said that was
the initial,
your area.
The initial one. Yeah. I think.
Sorry. Yeah.
In
Let's talk about
place,
Eagle Rock a little bit.
If you just give them a little incentive, to keep their homes clean. Where so they're going to get paid if they clean up this area. Then they don't have to go out and panhandle as much. Not that they won't have to do it at all.
Not like they won't accept donations and
they're
contributions.
They have an easy source of income right here. If we clean up this area, great. We've got some money. We can get something to eat.
Right. Yeah.
We can get a bus ride to services or whatever. That just makes sense to me.
Right. Yeah. It does. It does. It's a community.
Yeah.
Be a part of it.
Yeah. Then they help you, and apparently from what I read, this was really successful in the areas where they did it in San Francisco, and just makes so much sense. It seems brilliant to me. But yeah, you're providing, the community is getting something in return, right? The encampment is going to be a lot cleaner, and you're not going to have trash everywhere, because they're probably not going to be cleaning up their own stuff, right?
Right. Yeah.
They want any old piece of trash that falls in or someone throws out of their car or whatever, they're going to get that too.
Right. Yeah.
So you're going to have a cleaner area, and they benefit. They get something that they need to help sustain them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it's going to be reliable.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
Or more reliable than trying to pick up money somewhere else.
Probably more cost effective than cleaning an entire encampment out and then essentially moving back in shortly thereafter, right?
Right.
And then
Absolutely.
Just keep repeating this, Groundhog Day sort of situation.
Absolutely. Right.
Yeah. So that brings me to another question. What exactly, from your experience, have you seen city-run organizations do to help the homeless population, or is it just us against them sort of mentality?
Oh man, that's a big one. So, city-run. Well, I think
I know they dedicated a large chunk of money, but what exactly have you seen? Because you've witnessed a lot of stuff in these communities.
Yeah. Well, I think the LA Homeless Services Authority. They do the count. That's very, very important to know how many people are unhoused and need services and access to services. I haven't been a part of the count.
Right.
It's something I would like to do at some point, but I haven't been able to do it yet. That's, I think, a big job, and then that's been I don't even know if they did it during the COVID years. I don't think it was done.
Okay.
So some of the numbers are, probably guessed at.
Wow.
I think things that I have seen, I think just what I think everyone else sees. The homeless communities are just being cleaned up, moved out.
So it's more geared towards the homeowners rather than helping and assisting the home.
Not totally. I think there are some good things going on. So again, just in Highland Park and Eagle Rock, there are two communities. One is, man, I wish they could finish it quickly. It's actually right where I was painting. My first painting was under the 134 freeway at Figueroa. They're putting in the tiny homes community.
Okay.
So there's just a whole bunch of tiny little houses in a lot. And I actually did one painting of that area. They just need to finish it because I think it was about a month ago someone died on the street there.
Oh no.
People passed away. I'm not sure how, but I've seen the memorial for it. It's like, okay, if those homes had been done just a little bit earlier, maybe someone's life could have been saved.
A couple less nights facing the elements.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. These mini home communities are going up. There's one along the 110 in Highland Park too. So I think those are great because again, if you can solve, there's a lot of problems. You can't just say, okay, but we need to have a permanent place for them, and that's the end. And that's it. And anything less than that is not good. That doesn't solve all the other problems in front of that. Right?
Yeah.
It's like there's multiple layers. So any time you can make progress in some of those problems, you're helping someone's life get better. And then the better suited they're going to be to help tackle, the next step. Again, like trying to navigate all of the services and emails and the phone calls just to get to that permanent place.
Yeah.
Again, for someone who has total access, 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
It took 2 weeks. So again, like moving into a small home
Yeah.
Where they have a complete enclosure. You don't have to worry about wind and rain.
Yeah.
You can lock your door. You
Or even like extreme heat, like in the middle of summer.
And in
like,
the
that's
summer, it's
gotta
going
be
to get
tough.
bad. The concrete is really hot in the summer.
Mm.
It's really cold at night. And so everything is going to be better for that person in the tiny home.
Yeah.
And they're going to then be better suited to tackle all those other problems to help get them to that final point, hopefully.
Right. Move them up on Maslow's hierarchy.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Now, have you I think I remember, because I got this idea from the Board of Trustees meeting. I think I remember you saying you
Camped out on the street.
You camped
tried
out
to blend in as someone homeless. Yes, I did that.
Take me into that experience for a little bit.
I did do that. So at that point I had, this was closer to, it might have been on my very first sabbatical. I think I had just finished, I was department chair at that point. So I had really long hair and a big beard. Very different than I am
You
now.
look, now you have a shaved head.
And so I stayed out on the street.
What neighborhood were you in?
I went to a neighborhood that I was kind of comfortable in. I was in downtown.
Okay.
So Central City East, and stayed on a couple blocks where I felt pretty sure I would be okay.
Okay.
Kind of safe.
You knew the big
but
dog on the block.
Yeah,
You were familiar.
I wasn't gonna go, where I knew I clearly wouldn't fit in. But it was hard. It was very, very, very hard.
What did you learn?
Concrete is really freaking cold. And to find some cardboard. Cardboard is a really good insulator, actually.
Now you had a tent?
No, I didn't have a tent.
What did
no.
what did your setup like? What did you?
Really old, nasty blanket and a little bucket, and that was it.
Okay.
And I needed some cardboard.
Right.
I
Yeah.
really did.
Just a kid right under you.
Yes, I should have walked around to try to find some.
You never got that?
I never did. It was
wow.
bad. It was so cold, so cold. And I think I did this in October.
Oh.
It was in October, so it wasn't really cold yet. In the day it was still in the 80s. It was still pretty hot. But and then as soon as the sun went down, the concrete really got cold. But it's hard,
Right around midnight, were you able to sleep that night?
I don't think I slept at all.
That'd probably be tough, huh?
I did not sleep at all.
It's tough enough sleeping underneath the stars in the wilderness, when you're
Yes.
on a concrete slab and
Yes.
it's real cold and
Yeah.
tough.
And there was an individual who was turning tricks,
Okay.
like right next to me. So every hour or so, I would hear the heels on the concrete. And I would just peek out and see them. So that went on until
Was business booming?
until
Oh, yeah.
must have been until the sun started coming. The light started to kind of come out in the east, and then they never came back at that point.
Okay, they were done with their shift.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it was it was what you would imagine it to be.
Cold, dark, kind of loud.
Yeah. A lot of trucks banging by.
Was it dark or was it bright? It was street
No,
lights and
I was
everything, or-
kind of I was away from two lights, so in a dark part of the sidewalk. And there, I think actually I would say she, but I'm purely guessing. The individual was getting picked up by the truck drivers.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like a big semi truck?
Yeah, exactly.
Really?
Yeah.
Was there a truck yard around, or like it was a warehouse area?
This is all the industrial area. Yeah, the warehouse district.
So they drop a load off and then do something.
Yes.
Enjoy the rest of their night, or
Yeah. Yep.
wow, wow.
But Yeah, it was something I did once, and then felt like, okay, I don't really need to do that again.
Right.
Because for me, at the end of the day, I still know I got a shower and a place to go to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was something to experience, trying to be up, sleeping on the sidewalk. Yeah.
Yeah, it really brought your perspective. It widened your perspective.
Yeah, I think it did. But again, I've been around it for so long now. Yeah, I don't think it's something I need to do again.
Yeah, you get the idea. At this point.
Yeah. And I think it's going to be difficult no matter what. Again, living in your car isn't any easier.
Right.
A bicycle actually is a great thing. People who have bicycles, that is a very valuable tool for them.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's what when I read that Long Beach City College was going to adopt the parking spaces for unhoused students to stay in, overnight in. I think that's wonderful. They need more of that, not just in the college, but I think just around, safe places where people can park the car and sleep if they have a car. That's a gift in that situation, right?
Yeah. I believe it is legal to sleep in your car for a couple nights in Long Beach, or?
Yeah, is it?
I think so, as long as it's not in front of a residential
area.
Yeah.
Stay away from those house people.
Yeah.
But I think that's
back to that.
Yeah, that's a gift. I think because again, if you take the vehicle away from that individual, then their situation just got much worse.
Totally.
So anything that will help is something that we need to allow. For them. And that's actually one of the places that I've worked a lot with in the past and volunteered with was the Lamp Art Studio in downtown. So
I'm familiar with that.
Lamp is a organization, and they have beds and housing buildings in downtown. They also had this art studio. That was starred by Rory White, and then the person who I really worked with and got to know really well is Hike. And we're actually meeting next week to talk about some projects. But Hike ran the art studio there for a long time. Now it's called Studio 526, because it's 526 San Pedro Street.
Okay.
And it's an open studio, and now it's not Lamp either. It's run by the People Concern. But it's an open studio where people off the street can come in and get some art supplies and draw or paint or make sculpture or whatever they want to do.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah.
And all the materials are provided there, and it's a really you see that part of downtown, and it's the heart of Skid Row, and you walk into this art studio, and it's just amazing.
Yeah.
It's so safe, and there's air conditioning, and people are expressing themselves, which is really important because it doesn't matter if you're again homeless in that community like that. If you're not the top dog, right?
Right.
You can't express your feelings.
Oh, okay.
Especially, so if you're unhoused and then, Echo Park or Highland Park, if something goes wrong, you can't be angry and express that, right?
Oh. Because there's somebody that will check you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Or you're going to be seen as, someone who's unstable or violent or acting out, right?
Okay.
Or whatever. But if I walked down the street and someone bumped into me and I, told them off and made some gestures or whatever, got real loud and big, I'm a jerk. Right?
Of course, yeah.
If you're unhoused and you express yourself that way, your danger,
Oh,
right?
Your
You're not
danger.
just a jerk.
Right.
You're
the housed see the unhoused in that sort of way.
right. I mean,
of
it's
course, yeah.
interpreted. If you're wearing a suit
You're
and you
just
tell
a jerk
someone
to
off,
compared to
you
the-
know, there's ways. Access to self-expression, I think, is limited, and especially if you're thinking about art production, materials are you've got to have stuff.
Yeah,
Right?
totally. Right.
And art materials are expensive. They're not cheap. And so those people who are just striving to survive the day,
yeah.
the next day, they don't have access to that.
Yeah.
So they have a space where they can just walk into it, and it's right there for them, given to them. They don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
And then they get to express themselves any way they want, you know? As long as it's safe.
Yeah, as long as
Right.
it's a safe
I mean,
environment, you don't.
But that's never been, never been an issue. It's funny, you actually see the artists there will have like aesthetic arguments, So that was always fun when all of a sudden, they were really focused on color interaction in the piece.
Okay.
Or whatever, and that became the big topic of conversation in the studio. That's awesome when they're given something, or they really engage with something beyond what I'm going to do tomorrow.
Yeah, totally.
Right,
Yeah.
the next day. But the other thing is you don't have to be clean or sober.
Oh, right. Yeah.
There's no
Everybody's-
limit time. You're
everybody's-
welcome. As long as you're not, in the moment.
Right. Yeah. Throwing up or doing
Right,
something
right.
out of your mind.
There's
Right.
no drug tests. You don't have to be, you can come in and
You
work.
can't do the drugs there, but you can
Yes.
be on them there. Or
Yes.
maybe not on them, but you have to, yeah.
Yeah, you got to be, I think, in control when you enter.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But there aren't any limits in that regard.
Because there's such a stigma, and there's such a about homeless people are all whacked out on drugs, isn't it?
Yeah.
And for you not to question whether or not they are, or who they are, if they feel comfortable in a certain state of mind, you're comfortable with that.
Yeah, and I think it was, if you put that limit, so many people, especially in that part of downtown, do struggle with substance abuse and have mental health issues. If you put limits on that, they'll never be able to access it. So you got to get them in, and then you help them with those other issues.
Right.
So you can't close the door and expect to get anywhere with it.
Right. Yeah.
So I think the art studio and that model was just brilliant, and the results of it were amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
If you do a certain substance frequently, you might see that as a part of your identity, and so if you say this is not allowed, somebody might think I am not allowed.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. And so,
absolutely.
Right.
And I'll never be able to get in there.
And you feel like you can't express yourself after that.
Yeah. So it's kind of, I don't know. It was open door policy.
Good.
And so all sorts of people went in, and it was really was it still is, I'm sure. I haven't been since COVID, but a great community of artists.
Yeah.
And Hike, he isn't there any longer, but he was a great leader for that space, and yeah.
What are they able to do with the paintings or pieces of artwork after they're done?
They would exhibit them.
Yeah.
Sell them. Oh man, my class is gonna start.
Oh,
soon. But yeah.
One last. Sorry.
Yeah.
One last question. What's in the future? What's your? Do you have any plans coming up?
Well, I'm still continuing this series, so
Okay.
I see it going on. I have no idea for how long, but I'll still be doing the encampment series. Yeah, until I feel like it's got to change. and there's a change in the city or something. Yeah, but I'll still be painting hopefully different parts of the city. I haven't even been down to Venice. You know, that was a big community that I totally missed.
Oh yeah. And they have made a point to clear out the boardwalk recently, over the past year.
Yeah, it's just after Echo Park. So there are a lot of places, a lot of harder to get to places that I pass on the freeway and think, I gotta, you know, I would be taking a bit of a chance because it's not public space.
Oh, okay.
But there are places along the river and the freeways that I would really like to get to. So I've got a lot of, in my mind, yet places to visit and record. But yeah, that's the future, I guess.
Great.
As far as I can see.
Great. Well, thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. I feel like we had a great conversation.
Yeah, I did too. Yeah, thank you. And if you have any follow-up questions, you can email me and give me a call or whatever.
Cool. Sounds great.
All right.
Thanks again. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
This is going to be awesome. I'm really, really excited about it.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.